This week, the Vatican calls for the release of Nigerian schoolgirls. The Armenian Apostolic Patriarch visits and prays with Pope Francis, and someone is offering people fake Vatican jobs. Hello and welcome to Vatican Connections. There was a lot going on inside and outside the walls this week, so let's take a look. The Vatican is calling for the release of over 200 Nigerian schoolgirls who were kidnapped by the terrorist group Boko Haram on April 14th. Speaking to reporters, the Vatican spokesperson, Father Federico Lombardi, said the abduction is just the latest episode of different forms of violence this terrorist group is known for. He said it calls for the strongest condemnation and arouses the most heartfelt feelings of compassion for the victims. He also said the Vatican adds its voice to everyone calling for the girls to be released. He said, "We hope and pray that Nigeria may find a way to end the situation of conflict and hateful terrorism." And we have more details about Pope Francis's visit to the Holy Land in 2 weeks. He will have two friends accompanying him on this voyage. One is Rabbi Abraham Skorka, the rector of the Latin American Rabbinical Seminary of Buenos Aires. He and the Pope wrote a book together in 2010. The second friend is Sheikh Omar Aboud, the former Secretary General of the Islamic Center of Argentina. Maronite Patriarch Becararay has also announced that he will also accompany the Holy Father on the trip. This is a first. No high-ranking Lebanese cleric has set foot in Israel since it was created in 1948. In 1964, a Maronite patriarch visited Jerusalem, but at that time, the city was controlled by Jordan. Salt and Light will have extensive coverage of the Pope's visit to the Holy Land. We'll have more details about our broadcasts on next week's program. Between 2002 and 2013, over 800 priests were laicized after credible allegations of sexual abuse. Archbishop Silvano Tomasi, the Vatican's representative to the UN in Geneva, answered questions from the Committee Against Torture and gave statistics about the number of credible allegations of sexual abuse over the last few years. Archbishop Tomasi said in the period between 2002 and 2013, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith received 3,420 credible accusations. Of those, 884 priests ended up being laicized, while 2,572 were sentenced to a life of penance and prayer or had other sanctions imposed. He also said that while the Holy See is the head of the Church, when it comes to international law, the Holy See only has sovereignty over Vatican's city-state. If the Holy See were to apply the terms of the Anti-Torture Treaty to every Catholic institution in the world, it would violate the sovereignty of other countries and the basic principle of international law. He also clarified that Archbishop Joseph Wesolowski, a former papal nuncio to the Dominican Republic, is being investigated by a Vatican City court because as a diplomat, he is a citizen of Vatican City-State. On a related note, the Commission for the Protection of Minors held its first meeting last week. Last Saturday, Cardinal Sean O'Malley, Marie Collins, and Father Hans Zollner took part in a briefing about that first working session. Reading a statement before taking questions, Cardinal O'Malley said the Commission met with other Vatican departments, including the Vatican Gendarme, to discuss possible future collaboration. He also had this to say.
It's clear, for example, that the Commission will not deal with individual cases of abuse, but we can make recommendations regarding policies for assuring accountability and best practices. In the statutes, we plan to make specific proposals regarding the importance of emphasizing ways for raising awareness of all people regarding the tragic consequences of sexual abuse and of the devastating consequences of not listening, not reporting suspicion of abuse, and failing to support victim survivors and their families.
Marie Collins, the abuse survivor who is part of the panel, was asked about Pope Francis's earlier statement this year that no one has done as much to fight against sexual abuse as the Church. She said the Pope's statement was true, but it was not universal. Now, the Commission did meet with Pope Francis twice during their meetings, but he did not formally address the group because the full Commission has not yet been established. And new Swiss guards were sworn in this week during a ceremony at the Vatican. The swearing-in takes place every year on May 6th because that day is the anniversary of the sack of Rome. On that day in 1527, 189 Swiss guards fought a woefully unbalanced battle to protect Clement VII and the Papal State. Only 42 guards survived, and they were the 42 who whisked the Pope away through the Passetto to Castel Sant'Angelo. This year, 30 new guards were sworn in. The ceremony took place in the San Damaso courtyard of the Apostolic Palace. The new recruits took an oath to protect the Pope faithfully, loyally, and honorably, and to extend the same protection to the College of Cardinals. Did you know? To be a Swiss guard, a young man must be under the age of 30, single, a practicing Catholic in good health, and must already be a member of the Swiss military. He cannot marry until he is 25, has served for 3 years, and reached the rank of corporal. Finally, what would you say if someone offered you a job at the Vatican? Now, it seems a lot of people would jump at the opportunity. So many so that some unscrupulous recruitment agencies and other organizations have been using the offer of Vatican-based jobs to lure unsuspecting job seekers. On Thursday, the Governatorato of Vatican City-State issued a statement saying recruitment for positions in Vatican City is never done through third-party agencies, and furthermore, there's currently a hiring freeze in Vatican City. Anyone who has received a job offer allegedly based in Vatican City from a recruiting agency or another organization is asked to please contact Italian police and the Vatican gendarmes. Last week, we brought you Father Thomas Rosica's reflection on the canonization of John Paul II and John the 23rd. This week, we have Sebastian Gomes, a Salt and Light producer who covered the events on the ground for us. He talked to us about the highlights we didn't see on camera.
One of the things that was very powerful about the week leading up to the canonizations was to hear all the testimony of people who knew these men. I mean, these are two guys that people remember them. They literally touch the lives of so many people who are still with us today. And so to hear those testimonies of how free they were as people, how happy they were, what kind of prayer lives they led, were really, really touching. About John Paul II, for example, many people told me and said publicly in the press conferences and different interviews that they recall how powerful an experience it was to watch him pray, to watch him sit before the Blessed Sacrament, to watch him kneel down and spend time with God. And they spoke about it like it was a mystic, almost a mystical experience for him and the power of that. So there's no doubt that he, for example, was a very holy man. And the stories about John are incredible. People remember him, and the full expression of this was the calling of the council, but they remember him as this person who was always open to the Holy Spirit. After the canonizations, we went up to Soto El Monte, which is the hometown of now St. John the 23rd. And it was a beautiful experience, driving into the small town. I mean, the whole thing was littered with papal flags and yellow and white ribbons on all the fences. And many of his descendants are still there. The Roncalli family is still a household name up there. And we had the very rare opportunity to speak privately with Cardinal Loris Capavilla, his private secretary for many years. And what he shared with us was incredible. I mean, he remembers so well, the election of John, the immediate impetus of John to call the council. He told us this story that when right after he was elected, all the cardinals were coming into his office to greet him and say, "Welcome, Holy Father," and we're praying for you and everything. And he said immediately the resident bishops from all over the world, not the curial officials, but the resident bishops, were bringing all these issues to the table and saying, "Look, Holy Father, this we have to deal with, this we have to deal with, there's a problem with this and that and that." And he said it was just overwhelming a little bit. And John almost immediately had the idea of calling a council, and they began to look into the tradition of the church and the code of canon law to see if that was something that was possible. And to hear Cardinal Capavilla reminisce about those days that were very tense was really, really fascinating. It was a history lesson unto its own.
Io ho 97 anni, va bene? E allora conosco Papa Giovanni dal 1935. Il 2 novembre 1958, cioè 5 giorni dopo la elezione, il cardinale Ernesto Ruffini, come tutti i cardinali, a turno è andato in udienza dal Papa. Ha detto: abbiamo parecchi problemi, situazioni difficili, sia di carattere religioso, storico, diplomatico. E nella carta delle udienze il Papa scrive la parola per la prima volta, concilio. E anche altri vescovi, tutti portavano vari temi, molti erano per la riforma liturgica dei seminari, della disciplina del clero, problemi non dottrinali ma pastorali. Passano 20 giorni, mi dice sul mio tavolo si accumulano problemi, domande, richieste, speranze, ci vorrebbe proprio un concilio. E io ho taciuto. Dice: mi sono chiesto perché il mio segretario gli faccio una confidenza una volta, una seconda volta, non dice nulla. No, ma io so perché tu hai fatto questo. Tu hai pensato, è vecchio? No, sì, ma poi ti sei preoccupato. Se tu hai fatto con buona intenzione, cioè è vecchio, ma si mette un pasticcio di questo, in questo compito così enorme, non avrai il tempo, perché tu se ragioni come un commendatore, un delegato di banca, non è mica così che si ragiona con la fede. Ricevere una buona ispirazione e guardarla con ammirazione e dire: oh, quanto mi piacerebbe, è già un grande merito. Se poi Dio ti concedesse di trovare con l'aiuto dei collaboratori che ti incoraggia ad andare avanti, meglio ancora. E se tu cominciassi anche solo con la commissione antepreparatoria, è già un grande merito. Se tu muori e viene un altro e dice: grande onore anche solo cominciare. Ma perché Papa Giovanni ha fatto il concilio? Papa Giovanni, parlando con il suo segretario di Stato, ha detto: guardi che dopo la seconda guerra mondiale è molto bello che siano sorti 3 istituti internazionali e sono nati in America. L'ONU per la pace, la FAO per il pane, l'UNESCO per la cultura. Io sono il Papa, non ricevo sempre, si fanno congressi di filosofia, di letteratura, di commercio, perché non ci troviamo anche noi insieme a parlare? Avrebbe ripetuto questo, come ha detto all'inizio del concilio, no? L'ha detto: entriamo in concilio con il patrimonio della tradizione da Nicea sino al concilio di Trento e il Vaticano I. L'ha detto chiaro questo, cosa doveva dire di più? Proprio perché era un grande conservatore, ha potuto portare al mondo un messaggio di amore, di speranza e di fiducia.
Last week, Pope Francis got some much-needed rest after a full week, but this time it was full steam ahead. On Sunday, he visited the parish of St. Stanislaw in Rome to celebrate a massive Thanksgiving. St. Stanislaw is the Polish church in Rome, and John Paul II visited the parish more than 80 times during his pontificate. During his homily, Pope Francis said, like Peter, John Paul II never lost hope because his faith was anchored in God, and because of that, he was able to be a rock for the Polish Catholic community. Pope Francis told members of the community they are part of a population that has been tried throughout history, and they know, like John Paul II, that to enter into glory it is necessary to first pass through the Passion and the Cross. He asked, are we ready to follow the same path? On Monday, the Pope met with members of the Conference of Major Superiors of Men and with the bishops of Burundi on their ad limina visits. Vatican Television has more.
Pope Francis met with the bishops of Burundi on Monday. Referring to the ethnic conflicts that plague the African nation, the Pope said that only a genuine conversion to the gospel leads to fraternal love and forgiveness. He said society can only be truly reconciled through a profound evangelization, and this should be the bishops' first priority. The Holy Father urged the bishops to step up their efforts in the formation of clergy and laity and to combine evangelization and human promotion, because poverty is an obstacle to development and foments discord.
Pope Francis also had an audience with the Swiss Guards who were preparing to be sworn in. He said society and the church have changed quite a lot since the Guard was founded, but the heart of the human person has not, and the capacity for fidelity and courage is still the same. He went on to say the Swiss Guard uniform makes an impression and attracts attention, but it's the man who wears the uniform that must make an impression with his manners, his personality, his way of welcoming people, and an attitude of Christian charity towards everyone. Wednesday was the general audience, and Catholic News Service has more.
È tanto importante la preghiera. Pregare le preghiere che tutti noi sappiamo da bambini, ma anche pregare con le nostre parole. Pregare il Signore aiutami, consigliami, cosa devo fare adesso? E con la preghiera facciamo spazio perché lo Spirito venga e ci aiuti in quel momento, ci consigli su quello che tutti noi dobbiamo fare. La preghiera. Mai dimenticare la preghiera. Mai.
On Thursday, the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, Karakin II, met with Pope Francis and joined him in a moment of prayer. In his greeting to the Patriarch, Pope Francis said the ties between the Armenian Apostolic Church and the Roman Catholic Church have been consolidated in recent years thanks to John Paul II's visit to Armenia in 2001 and several mutual visits. He also said, to honor those who were killed for their faith in the 20th century, all Christians today must renew their commitment to reconciliation and full unity. Then Pope Francis met with the bishops of Ethiopia and Eritrea on their ad limina visits, and on Friday, Pope Francis met for the second time with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, though this time he was accompanied by the heads of various UN international institutions.
En el caso de la organización política y económica mundial, lo que falta es mucho, ya que una parte importante de la humanidad continúa excluida de los beneficios del progreso y relegada, de hecho, a seres de segunda categoría. Los futuros objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, por tanto, deben ser formulados y ejecutados con magnanimidad y valentía, de modo que efectivamente lleguen a incidir sobre las causas estructurales de la pobreza y del hambre, consigan mejoras sustanciales en materia de preservación del ambiente, garanticen un trabajo decente y útil para todos y den una protección adecuada a la familia elemento esencial de cualquier desarrollo económico y social sostenible. Se trata en particular de desafiar todas las formas de injusticia, oponiéndose a la economía de la exclusión, a la cultura del descarte y a la cultura de la muerte, que por desgracia podrían llegar a convertirse en una mentalidad pasivamente aceptada. Hoy, en concreto, la conciencia de la dignidad de cada hermano, cuya vida es sagrada e inviolable desde su concepción hasta el fin natural, debe llevarnos a compartir con gratuidad total los bienes que la providencia divina ha puesto en nuestras manos, tanto las riquezas materiales como las de la inteligencia y del espíritu, y a restituir con generosidad y abundancia lo que injustamente podemos haber antes negado a los demás.
Let's take a look at this week's resignations and nominations. In the U.S., the Chaldean Diocese of St. Thomas the Apostle of Detroit, Bishop Ibrahim Namo Ibrahim resigned after reaching the mandatory age, and Father Frank Kabbalat was appointed to succeed him. Father Kabbalat was born in Kuwait. He studied for the priesthood in San Diego and was ordained for the Diocese of St. Thomas of Detroit in 1995. He has served in various parishes in Michigan. The Chaldean Diocese of Toronto also has a new leader. Bishop Hanazora resigned, and Father Daoud Bafro has been named the Apostolic Administrator until a new bishop can be appointed. And in Italy, Monsignor Francesco Oliveira has been appointed Bishop of Locri Gerace. Vatican Connections is interactive. We answer your questions and explain things you want to know. You can reach us on Twitter at Vaticonnections or by email at info@saltandlighttv.org. We'll try our best to answer your questions during this part of our show. That's all for this edition of Vatican Connections. Join us next week when we look at the ordinations at St. Peter's and much, much more. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook for daily updates. For everyone here, thanks for watching and see you next time.